would go back and forth between doing comedy with Bill Cosby, and then another episode he was very dark and very troubled. And Bob was writing a lot of those episodes. He not only kind of came up with the original idea, wrote the initial script. He did not have a black partner. He was solo. He was like James Bond. He was an athlete who he was an agent who was undercover as an athlete who traveled the world. And Sheldon read the script. Carl Reiner gave it to him, and he called Bob into his office. And he says, "I like your idea, but I like mine better. You're going to have a black partner." And Bob Cope said, "You know what? That is better." And that's how it became I Spy. But it was a co-venture between the two. And then Bob wrote the first 3 or 4 episodes that really set the tone for the show and the banter between Cosby and Cope. And they would rewrite all the other scripts. They would redo them on the set. They would look at the page and go, "Okay, that's not us," and they would redo the dialogue. So he was the inspiration behind that show. We got to give Sheldon credit though, because if it hadn't been for Sheldon, the show would not have gotten on the air.
Oh yeah.
Who else would have the guts to put in that kind of money? He had to put in a lot of his own money, and to go around the world and come up with the technology and make that possible and shoot this show in color all around the world when nobody else was doing that back in that time.
Oh yeah, and
so Sheldon deserves all that credit, sure, but Bob was really the soul of I Spy.
Oh yeah, and they used to push that, in living color too. I Spy, and that was one of their main things when they were promoting the show on the network all the time. I will say this, that my mind just went blank here. The producer.
Well, we remember the Peacock.
Yeah, I remember the Peacock.
The show is brought to you in living color on NBC. I just posted on my Facebook page, Marc Cushman on Facebook, M-A-R-C, Cushman. I came across a 60-second promo for Star Trek from 1968 that ran on NBC, and they're really pushing the color aspect again. It's a lot of fun. Go to my my Facebook page and you can watch that thing. It's you can share it over to your page. It's really great to see. From 68, early 68.
That's when people were getting from black and white into color TV too.
Yeah.
So they were just really, hey, you want to watch in living color? I don't know. If between watching a black and white show and the color, it did make a big difference. Especially, I don't think seriously that I Spy would have made it in black and white. I think going all through the world and like the Greek islands and all these beautiful colors and everything.
Well, that's how Sheldon sold it to NBC. He went into NBC and he said, "Okay, James Bond was like top." The first 2 movies had come out. Goldfinger hadn't come out yet, but Dr. No and From Russia with Love. And there was not a spy show on the networks that year. And so he went into NBC and he said, I want to do a show with a spy who travels the world, an hour-long show, and it's going to be in color. And I've got Bob Cope. And NBC said, "Do it." That's all he had to say. They said, "Do it." And they didn't know about Cosby. They didn't have Cosby at that point, and they brought him in after that when they went off to shoot the first episode. But that's all they had to hear. And that was a big thing with Star Trek, too. NBC used to use it for their promotions for RCA TVs, the same company, RCA NBC, and they used it to help sell their color TV sets.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I remember when we got our color TV and watching, Star Trek and I Spy and all that stuff. Boy, it brings back memories. God, I'm getting old.
I can remember the first episode I saw in color, and I bet you can too, because I'd been watching it in black and white. Our family TV in the living room was black and white, and then we went over to some friend's house. We were over at their house one night, and it was the night Star Trek was on, and they had it on, and they had a color TV, and it was the first time I saw Star Trek in color. It was in 1967, and it was an episode called This Side of Paradise. And that's when I first saw the blue shirts and the green shirts and the red shirts and the colors of the planet and everything. And I was like, oh, my God. And we all of us, I had 3 sisters, and we were all bugging our father to get a color TV after that. We had to watch Star Trek in color.
No, you couldn't watch black and white after that. It was hard to watch a black and white show after that. Even if you had a color set. I mean, you got engrossed into color.
Yeah. And I'm not knocking black and white. I love black and white. I mean, Peter Gunn, that show couldn't have been in color. That had to be in black and white. And Citizen Kane, Turner colorized that. What a terrible thing to do. No, that's got to be in black and white. No, actually, he wanted to colorize it. They found out Orson Welles had a contract that would not allow it to be altered, so it stayed in black and white. I mean, black and white is just beautiful, but not for I Spy, not for Star Trek. Those shows had to be in color, and they were.
Well, Andy Griffith's show would have never won over. Honestly, if it would have been in color. I just think, when you watch it, sometimes the black and white really draws you into it because of the contrast. With your brain,
well,
you don't realize it.
Yeah, because Andy Griffith's show is kind of like It's a Wonderful Life. It was kind of it had kind of a 1940s feel to it, even though it was being done in the 60s. Kind of that Frank Capra type of storytelling. And black and white worked. The last 2 seasons of the Andy Griffith Show were in color, and they're not as good. Black and white work better.
I think so. I think that was the demise of, I hate to say it, Mayberry RFD is all being in color.
Yeah. But even before that, the last year or two, I think two seasons that Andy Griffith was on the show was in color. But Don Knotts had left, so they lost that. And then they turned it into color. And Mayberry just wasn't meant to be in color. It's like a 1940s Mickey Rooney movie, the Hardy Brothers or whatever it was.
Hardy Boys.
The Hardys, Hardy family, and it just is right in black and white. It just needs to be that way, and it still plays. It still shows 5 times a week in most cities. It's a great show.
Oh yeah, here up in the Seattle area, it's on for an hour every night. So and it hasn't left for the last 30 years. Every night you see it. So I don't know.
It's timeless.
Yeah.
Just like I Love Lucy is timeless and Star Trek is timeless, the first one.
Now, I will say one thing that Desi Arnaz and Lucy did, the right thing, Cinescope. They didn't do it. They did film. And I think that's why they made all their money, because could you imagine the reruns would have never went over on Cinescope.
No, that's Desi Arnaz was brilliant. He there's a little beep, so I'm turning my oven on so I can eat when we're done.
You're making me hungry. Don't say that.
Desi Arnaz, they wanted to do I Love Lucy. She had been doing it. Lucy had been doing it on radio, called My Favorite Husband, with a different actor. And Harry Ackerman, who I knew, great guy, it was his idea to take it over to TV. And Lucy had a good film career going at that time. And at that time, you could do films and radio, but you couldn't do films and TV. It would kill you. It would kill your film career. And they said, let's do this as a television series. And she was on the fence. And she said, well, if you let my husband play my husband, if you let Desi be my husband, I'll do it. And so they said, sure, fine. And they didn't say it that quickly because he was Cuban and they weren't sure about it. They had to do some testing and so forth. But they wanted to do it in New York on live, so it would be Kinescope on the West Coast. It was his idea to do it in front of a studio audience with 3 film cameras. And he invented the 3-camera sitcom. And if you look at The Honeymooners, which was being done at the same time, and I love The Honeymooners, but it doesn't look anywhere near as good as I Love Lucy, because The Honeymooners was done live and then on Kinescope. And I Love Lucy was done with 3 film cameras. And Desi said, I'll pay the difference. If we can shoot it in Hollywood in front of a studio audience with 3 film cameras, I'll pay the difference. And they said, why would you do that? And he says, well, let me have the reruns. And CBS said, what's a rerun? And they laughed at him. They thought he was a fool. They said, go ahead. Spend the extra money. Shoot it on film. Fine with us. And within 2 years, show's #1, and they didn't want to take the summer off. They thought, well, we'd like to rerun these episodes, and so they had to come back to Desi to get the reruns. And that's what gave him and Lucy the money to buy RKO and turn it into Desilu Productions. So he was the guy who invented all that. And so he taught that to Lucy, and that's why she got Star Trek. So we all say Lucy is the hero behind Star Trek, but in an indirect way, so is Desi Arnaz.
Oh, yeah, they both were. Now, what books do you have that people can go out and find, Mark?
Well, the first 3 volumes cover the first series, and if you haven't read them, you got to read them if you like Star Trek, because you get to read the memos, you get to see all the battles that were fought to get these shows made, you get to see why they wanted to do the episodes they were doing, and what they were trying to say with these episodes in their own words, written in the memos when they were doing them. And the 2 new books, one's out now, the other one comes out in a couple months, covers the 1970s, and you see the struggle for Gene Roddenberry to bring Star Trek back. He had mixed feelings. He wanted to do other things too, but he wanted to bring Star Trek back as well. And the fights he had with Paramount, my God, I really believe, and I've talked to Dorothy about this, I interviewed her for the book, Dorothy Fontana and Susan Sackett, who was his personal assistant and so forth, and I knew Gene. And we all believe that what he went through in the 1970s pretty much killed him. It took another 20 years for him to die, but it killed him. It destroyed his body from the stress and just the abuse he was taking from Paramount. And you see it in these memos. You see what he's going through. This show back, and so it's. I learned a lot digging through the archives and finding all this stuff, and I really ache for him what he went through, but he succeeded. It's bittersweet because it took a toll on him, but he brought Star Trek back for us as the movies, and then he got Next Generation on and so forth. And look what it's become. It's become this giant franchise.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you know. And
that is going to outlive all of us.
Oh, yeah. Just like I Love Lucy is going to outlive all of us. And
You
probably my
betcha.
grandkids. It's classic. It's not going to go away. Ah,
Yeah.
boy. Well,
But these things don't come easy. It's paid for in blood, sweat, and tears.
oh, yeah.
And that's what you see in these books. And they're not a bummer. You know, I think they're uplifting because it's like watching any great movie. You got a character who's fighting and fighting and fighting and takes his knocks, but at the end of the movie, they win the prize. And that's what you see when you read these books. But you see the struggle, and you see the immense effort and the thought that went into it. Star Trek was not great as an accident. It was all thought out so well, and you see all that in the memos.
Yeah. Well, our time is up again, Mark. Boy, it went by fast. Again, what's your website where they can check it up?
Mine is Marc Cushman at markcushman.com, MarCushman, but my publisher is Jacobs Brown. You can just search for These Are the Voyages, Marc Cushman. It'll take you to their website. If you buy the books directly from publisher, they come signed. They can come inscribed. You can get them from Amazon, Barnes & Noble, but those don't come signed. So they make a great Christmas present. And I did this not to make money. Made very little money because it took so long to write these books and so much work. But I did it to share all this information with the fans because Gene showed me all this stuff, and I said, can I put this in a book? And he said, yeah. And so that was just kind of a mission I was on.
And a very good one, my friend. Well, till next time.
Thank you.
Have a good meal
All right,
here,
Gary.
and we'll talk to you later.
Next time you'll be in the walker and running laps.
Well, how about jogging laps? My friend, you take care till next time, okay?
Thank you, Gary.
Okay.
God bless you.
You take care, my friend.
Bye.
Bye. Well, tomorrow we have Bruce Maccabee on, and we're going to be talking about, UFOs and disclosure and all that, whatever he wants to talk about. I mean, he's the godfather in ufology. And James, you are so quiet out there. I just wonder if you were still alive or you passed out or died or something.
No, hey, listen, when Mark gets on a roll, you don't interrupt him. You just let him go on with this history of the TV shows. Plus, it was good stuff. I had to learn something.
Yeah, and tomorrow, Bruce Maccabee. We got some great guests, and guess what? Who's coming up later in the week?
Got Bruce Maccabee tomorrow and Whitley Strieber on Thursday.
Oh, yeah, I can't wait for that one. And I got his book in the mail today, but it's not signed.
Mine isn't either. I got the first edition
I got his latest book. It was released. I got it, probably before